I do know you. I think we might want to do away with my little box here in general. Maybe we just, I got taller. So it works out. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
I am excited to announce a few things today. We're focusing our press availability today on winter outreach. Earlier this week, the city, state, and our civic partners from the Tornado Recovery Committee mobilized a new outreach effort to speak directly with tornado-impacted residents who may be living within damaged buildings. I think typically we would have expected FEMA to extend their rental assistance and other assistance programs. That didn't happen here. We are disappointed in that, but we are moving ahead. It's important to us to make sure that folks have a safe place to spend the winter months, especially as temperatures continue to drop. We're going to have some extraordinarily dangerous temperatures this weekend. So we are connecting directly with residents to ensure they have a plan to stay safe and warm. And we are now effective immediately providing additional support, including additional hotel rooms, rental assistance to our most vulnerable residents, and those include families with children, seniors age 65 or older, or folks living with accessibility or functional needs. Our outreach partnership, just to give you a broad overview of what those partnerships look like and what the outreach efforts look like, the City of St. Louis Recovery Office itself, in collaboration with Action St. Louis, the St. Louis Community Foundation, and the St. Louis Integrated Health Network, is conducting outreach to check on individuals who remain in tornado-damaged dwellings. What this looks like is the City of St. Louis Recovery Office will be conducting phone calls, outbound emails, and text messaging direct to residents with whom we've been in contact. The Action St. Louis is supporting through a direct door-to-door campaign that includes flyers and door hangers and some direct communication with residents. The St. Louis Integrated Health Network is supporting with community health workers to help navigate needed supports. These efforts are paid for with a combination of RAM's settlement interest funds and funds we have raised through our official tornado recovery fund at the Community Foundation. We are being proactive on information as we receive it from FEMA. So we want to make sure that we're being very clear to residents. We're being proactive, we're knocking on doors, sending emails, calling folks, but just because you haven't received direct communication from us does not mean that you're not eligible. So please, if you're a resident who is living in a tornado impacted dwelling and you think you might qualify, reach out to us. You can do that through our stlrecovers.com website. You can do that through our outreach center at 4401 Natural Bridge, or you can call 1-833-925-0977. We are connecting folks, as I mentioned, with rental assistance. While this can take up to 30 days, we also have hotel vouchers that can help get you through that 30-day window where it may take to get you in an assisted rental unit. On the state side, we are now, with a partnership with the state of Missouri, offering some crisis counseling. We know people whose lives have been changed dramatically by the tornado are likely to experience anxiety, stress, many other challenges that are only going to exacerbate as the temperatures get colder and the gravity of where we're at has been settling in. So the state of Missouri, with support from FEMA, is now offering crisis counseling by phone. If you need help or someone you know needs help, please call 1-800-985-5990 or text "Show Me Help" to that same number. So finally, I just want to remind folks that you can apply for all of our programs at our stlrecovers.com website. The true URL is app.stlrecovers.com. This will take you to all of the programs that we have available today and any programs that we have moving forward. And lastly, I also want to announce that next week we're hosting a town hall on December 18th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Matthews Dickey Boys and Girls Club. We'll have resource tables and resource offerings available there as well. Doors open at 5:30, so you can come in a little bit early and see what kind of resources we might have available. And so that really covers the outreach here. It's important to us to be proactive and getting the word out to folks about what assistance we have to get through the winter. On top of those, you probably know by now that we also have additional resources in the congregate shelter space, and we're continuing to pull those online, recognizing that folks are making decisions sometimes just at the spur of the moment. And when temperatures get dangerous, we want to make sure we have all options for folks. Okay.
Mayor,
Julian, did you want to add anything?
Not at the moment. We'll take questions, then
Sure.
I'll add if there's more.
Okay.
Mayor, have you guys thought of any new measures you're going to maybe take to help the people at the 10th and Cass tent encampment? 45 to 50 people over there. Some of them went over there after the tornado hit because they didn't have any place else to go. Are you giving thoughts to putting a warm-up bus over there or putting that on the route for the transportation buses to shelters?
We are still taking a look at that. And Elliot, you've done such a great job of continuing to highlight that particular encampment as part of the overall set of encampments that we have in our city. That's, of course, a very large one. There have been some challenges there, and we're still working through what those look like, but it is on our radar. It is a location that we're talking about internally and ensuring that we're doing what we can to help those folks and provide access. I want to reiterate to anybody who's serving, I know we have quite a few volunteers who are going out regularly to that encampment. All of those folks, especially the folks that have been impacted by the tornado, we'd like to encourage them to apply for these programs to make sure that if they do qualify for the rental assistance and the other programs that they're accessing it, whether they were eligible for the FEMA ones or not, they could be eligible for our city programs, and we want to make sure we're getting those folks in. For the other folks involved, just to make sure that they are aware of our congregate shelter options, particularly when the temperatures get extremely low, and we will continue to evaluate how we're shuttling folks around.
Because many of them can't get to the shelters because they're too far away. And so one of the questions is, are you guys going to have some kind of bus over in that area to pick up people from that area to take them to shelters if they want to?
That's a great question. I know we have historically relied so much on volunteers to do a lot of that shuttling, and there have been quite a few volunteers very active in that particular encampment. And so we're going to continue to evaluate how we're doing the shuttling. We had a lot of shuttles kind of going around through the last winter cold snaps. They weren't as utilized as we might have hoped, so we're continuing to evaluate how we deploy those and making sure that they're most efficient and most effective as we move forward. Elliot?
Mayor, today we are speaking with a school and a family that's impacted by the tornado. The school has stepped in to actually raise funds to provide assistance for their families who have been impacted. They've been doing that since May. What does it say that the school has to take matters into their own hands because they did not want to win the city for help?
Well, we do have many programs. I would say, first of all, just an enormous amount of gratitude for that school. I'm not sure what particular school district or what school is involved, but what a generous and needed thing. As we've been navigating the systems, as I pointed out, we had applied for and we're really hoping that FEMA would extend the services that they have offered as far as rental assistance and shelter space. They didn't. And as we've been faced with this tragedy, the tragedy of the federal system has compounded the issue tremendously for us, and we're standing up programs as we can. And we know that no city, and St. Louis is not alone in not being able to address all the needs of our community. For that family, we are hoping that they will hear this message today and apply for the assistance that the city can provide, recognizing that we are not able to fill every gap. And we're really grateful for our community partners, including, it sounds like, just a really thoughtful and engaged school to step in and help.
You've been highly criticized by people in the community for not paying enough attention to North St. Louis. Do you think you're doing enough when it comes to that side of the town?
Well, I will say I know that we are not doing nearly enough for the victims of the tornado. And I will say in general, the city has in large part failed North St. Louis over generations. And so the tornado is really layering on top of decades of disinvestment and what has been a community set of communities that have been largely forgotten. While we recognize that the work we're doing is not nearly enough, I know we are moving heaven and earth to provide the resources that we can provide at this time. Recognizing that, of course, it really, we know it's not enough. And I hear that criticism, I accept it, and we will continue to do what we can to help the families impacted.
How many emergency shelter beds will you have open this weekend in cold temperatures?
I don't have the exact figure. We had 400 online. Those are year-round beds. We had around 346 that were brought on top of that. Julian, does that match where we are right now? About 346 additional shelter space. We are continuing to work with a whole host of partners, including churches and other organizations that may be able to open up additional space. We know it's a heavy lift, particularly for our faith organizations to be able to open up in those ways, but we're providing resources to help them be able to do that if they can. We know there are a lot more folks out there than we are able to provide shelter space for, which is why we're continuing to increase those numbers. But to date, we have not reached capacity. So we know that as winter goes on, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Well, as winter goes on, more and more folks will seek shelter. Just because we haven't reached capacity at this point doesn't mean we won't in the future, and it doesn't mean we're not preparing to expand as we move forward.
The General Assembly comes back into session next month. For people who last saw what the General Assembly did as far as tornado relief, it was the $100 million in aid during the special session. Do we have any idea how much of that has been spent down, and is there any legislation that you're working with lawmakers on to keep this moving forward into the next session?
Yes. As of to date, none of those funds have been spent down, and this is an area we are working in close communication and collaboration with the state of Missouri, the governor's office in particular, to get those funds moving. The governor's office has, as of about 6 weeks ago, dedicated a person in his cabinet to oversee this, which is a great step in the right direction and one that we're very grateful for and working directly with. We recognize that the funding, the $100 million that the legislature allocated last year, has been focused in the debris removal and demolition effort. We are working with the governor's office to accelerate a portion of those funds to get them moving quicker than they are able to get under federal regulations related to the demolition and debris removal. We should have more information about how we can move those funds more quickly here in the coming weeks. We recognize this is much slower than we want. It's much slower than the state wants, and so we're partnering to figure out how to accelerate some of those funds in the early 2026.
Mayor, do you know who Chief Tracy's advisory client is or will be? In other words, the person or entity that will be paying him for security advising?
I've heard some chatter about that. I don't have anything confirmed at this time, but we did, as you know, probably Jacob, extend that contract, and he signed that earlier this week. And I'm grateful to see his continued leadership over the city's police department.
Do you think it appropriate that the chief have an outside advisory security client?
I can't weigh in on that. I don't know the details of the contract that's being contemplated, but, I have to say, I see the chief working tirelessly for the city, and so I think he has something to offer other folks. We were very clear in our contract what the safeguards were and what he was able to do outside of the city of St. Louis employment.
What are the safeguards?
We wanted to make sure that, number of hours that he would be able to work outside, being on call, things of that nature. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it should be a public document. I'm not sure. I can't speak to that specifically right now, but I'd be happy to talk later this afternoon about it if you'd like.
If there were, though, advisory clients that he's giving security advice to, don't you think it would raise questions about decision-making on behalf of residents or visitors here in terms of the police force?
I don't know that I can hypothesize that at this time, but you bring up some interesting questions, Jacob. I think what I'm most concerned about or focused on is ensuring that we have consistent leadership at the police department, and I'm confident that extending his contract the way we have will provide that for our citizens.
Mayor, a number of tornado victims are still out of their homes because they've been severely damaged. We've been talking to one named Cara Spencer who is disabled. His furnace is not working. He didn't get enough money from FEMA to be able to have the work done. He had enough money to buy supplies, but didn't have enough money to hire workers. What is it? And I did get a correspondence from your office on that. But I'd like to know, should somebody from your office or city department call him and talk to him about the situation? Just like he's one of many people.
Yeah, Elliot, as I mentioned in the press briefing on the front end of this, our recovery office is doing direct calls starting this week. And so if you have Mr. Spencer's contact information, we'll take that down and make sure we give him a call and see what we can do.
I have to ask you about the situation involving Darlene Green and those checks. Are you satisfied with the investigation so far into that? We have no answers.
Elliot, I haven't checked on that in quite a few weeks, so I'm grateful you brought that up. I don't have an answer for you right now. We were supportive of an investigation just to make sure that we were taking a look at everything that was going on here. It certainly was alarming, the check situation, and I don't have an answer for you, but we'll make sure that...
Because I was asking, are you of the belief that she deserves an apology from you, the comptroller, and the personnel director?
Well, I can't. I don't know the details of everything. But what I will say is, Darlene Green did a great service to the city of St. Louis, the citizens, for many, many years, and she and I worked together on just an innumerable number of things, and I always found her service to be that on the side of the citizens, and I really appreciate her dedicated approach to serving our citizens. And she deserves a large amount of gratitude for her work.
President Green yesterday asked by state for a commitment not to seek a declaratory judgment on the use of the sales tax funds, at least until there was some board consensus about what the path forward should be. She also asked them to encourage your office not to seek a declaratory judgment. Do you have any?
It's a bit early to weigh in on any of these things. Right now, what we've asked by state to do is to consider a financially feasible way to invest the dollars that we've been collecting, that voters approved that we collect a sales tax for expanding public transit in St. Louis. We are committed to getting public transit expanded in a way that really supports the initiative that voters asked us to do in 2017. So we don't have a work product at this point, whether or not, I think it's premature to consider asking voters to weigh in on anything because we haven't done the due diligence that's required. It was unfortunate, the move by the president to ask for a vote when we don't have a real product to put in front of voters. So what I've asked is the Board of Aldermen to hold their action related to a public vote until we get some additional information, which by state is in the process right now of doing an investigation, not an investigation, but doing the research required to really put a product in front of voters and in front of us.
But as far as seeking a declaratory judgment,
I'm not ready to speak on that. We haven't really fully vetted the entire thing at this point. I mean, look, this is a big project. It's a big amount of money, and we've got to get it right. So before I'm willing to speak on it, before we really should be weighing in on it, we've got to have some more insight and more information.
One of the concerns of,
Elliot,
yeah,
you're dominating here.
No,
Is there anybody else? Is there anybody else? I mean, I will answer your question. I'm not going to leave you hanging, but
There's a resolution for, use board money to implement Gravway, safety features on Gravway.
Oh.
MoDOT also has something in the project for 2029. Thoughts on the resolution, and then also any concerns about the speed that MoDOT has something like that?
I am not able to weigh in specifically on that proposal at this time, but I could get back to you maybe in the next couple of days on it. MoDOT, Gravway is a MoDOT partner road, obviously, and, they move slower than we do. But they also put together 5 and 10-year plans, which I appreciate. That's something that the city has been unable to do at this time without a reliable funding source. So I really appreciate MoDOT's more proactive and collaborative approach to working with the city of St. Louis, and in particular their shift as of very recently to really focus on some pedestrian and other mobility safety initiatives. So I'm frustrated. It's frustrating to have that long timeline, but there's also some silver lining in that MoDOT has really shifted their focus to incorporate other forms of transportation other than just vehicular.
Why is it so important for the city to offer those incentives to people to stay in the city and not maybe move out to an adjacent community?
Are you talking specifically about the tornado, the victims? Because I've made a pledge to keep residents, and I want to be held to that standard. I mean, I think it's critically important that while we're recognizing the massive destruction and the trauma associated with the tornado, in many cases, the folks impacted, I would wager to say the vast majority of folks impacted have lived in these neighborhoods their entire lives, in the lives of their parents and grandparents. These are legacy homes that, for the most part, that have been in families for a very, very long time. And that sense of community, that community is vitally important to a successful city. We want to do everything we can to keep residents here. We also recognize many residents have been forced to make choices about where to live while their homes are badly damaged or in the process of being repaired, or looking at whether or not it's feasible to do that. And so we're looking at ways to strengthen ties with these families, and to, in the long term, our plan is to rebuild these neighborhoods. There are major, massive funding sources required to do that. In particular, Community Development Block Grant federal funding is going to be a required component. And this is where the federal government historically, typically, and hopefully in this case, steps in with hundreds of millions of dollars to rebuild our homes. And we want to ensure that every family who was living in the tornado impacted area on May 15th has a path to moving back. In order to do that, we have got to continue to have relationships with those families, and providing resources, including rental assistance and hotel vouchers, is a way for us to continue to engage. But we're looking for other ways to do that as well, and partnering to make sure that we are doing what we can to keep in connection with those families.
Mayor, one of the criticisms from homeless advocates is that you have not sat down, met with the leaders of the homeless communities, New Life Evangelistic Center, Urban City Services, and others who have been involved daily in the battle to help the homeless, that you have not convened a meeting to get their ideas on the best approach for dealing with the homeless problem. Are you considering holding a meeting with these people?
Well, Elliot, there are dozens. I don't even know. There are so many folks that are serving the unhoused. I mean, I get outreach.
20, I think.
Well, there are some that are off the books as well. I mean, there are quite a few organizations of just citizens who reach out and are on their own. So we have been convening regular meetings with the provider community through the continuum of care, and a host of other folks. We have not engaged the full breadth of every single organization, but please be aware and confident that we are communicating regularly with the folks impacted. I mean, we had a meeting last week with several folks that are very engaged in the long-term supportive housing community. That is a set of providers that provide folks with housing year-round for years on end, and that the funding for that housing is in grave danger of losing its federal funding. We're talking about close to $15 million just in the city alone, and would potentially make the folks in those long-term supportive housing units homeless at a very, very short period of time. And so we are working with those folks to not only understand the issues, but to try to figure out solutions.
What about organizations like New Life Evangelistic Center, Urban City Services? I mean, people, they've been out there every day. What about meeting with some of the folks like that?
That's
to get their ideas.
Sure. And we have been meeting with several grassroots folks and folks like that. Those are two in particular that I can't say that I have met personally with, but I would be open to it, and I think it's an idea worth looking into, Elliot. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else?
Are you at all concerned about asbestos and lead contamination?
I am. Yes, of course. Anytime you have demolition, you may know this, Austin, but a couple of years ago, I put forward a bill that localized the demolition process and put in stricter requirements as it relates to contaminants of lead and asbestos. So we do have concerns about that. The Board of Aldermen also has quite a few concerns about that, and I want to uplift their focus on this issue and their concerns. Just yesterday was talking to several members of the labor community who also share those concerns. So we're looking into that as we move into the larger scale demolition and debris project, the one that we were talking about a little bit earlier with the $100 million of state funding and the FEMA assistance, that partnership there. Those will be parts of that, especially as it relates to our city ordinances, which are stricter than the state laws on those issues.
As this year winds down,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Have those rules been enforced so far?
In the demolition process, they should be, Austin. I don't want to misstate, and if you know otherwise, but it is important. The air quality has been one that we have taken some extra steps on, having the air quality monitors in place. We brought in Dr. Alex Garza right on the front end of the tornado to help us evaluate how safe we're keeping folks. I mean, tornadoes are notoriously dangerous as far as air quality goes. Following Joplin, many people died months later, not because of the tornado, but because of contamination in the air. So we're taking it seriously. It is a concern. And as we move through the larger projects of demolition and debris removal, we'll be focusing on that.
I was going to ask the other thing. Are you confident the rules have been enforced so far?
I am confident that we have been doing what we can to provide safety in the air. I would like to maybe have a firmer answer for you than I have right now, Austin. What I have to say is that I recognize there are some concerns about that, and we are taking those concerns seriously, and we're looking into it.
Mayor, as this year winds down, this is my last question. Mayor,
yes. As
this year winds down, what would you say is your biggest success and your biggest failure since being elected?
Oh boy, Elliot, that's just a very simple end of the day sort of question, isn't it? Nothing like ending it on an easy note. No, I mean, if I were to give an answer that I think would want to have, that I would feel confident, I'd want to give myself a little more time to think about it. But off the cuff, I would say that, holding the responsibility of serving residents so dramatically and significantly impacted by the tornado, to both have to recognize not only the criticism, but the validity to the criticism that we aren't doing enough as a city, has been incredibly humbling. I hold that criticism. I know there is reason for it. We are simultaneously building the infrastructure to serve residents in a way that no cities were set up to do. And I am immensely proud of the work that our recovery team is doing and that we're doing. So I'm very, very proud of that work. I know we work very, very hard. And I also know that in many instances, despite that, we are failing residents. And there are folks that are still extraordinarily vulnerable in not only this winter ahead of us, but in their lives. And so as we continue to build the programs and build on top of this work, we are continuing to be able to do more. But it has been, I wouldn't say, I hate to use the word failure, because my work, how I feel about this administration reflects on the extremely hard work that everybody involved is doing. And that's not just in the mayor's office. The Board of Aldermen has been working extraordinarily hard. They're helpful in pointing out where the gaps are and where we can do better, as well as the public and our partners. So, while you ask tough questions, everybody here asks tough questions. It helps to ensure that we're doing a better and better job every day of an impossible task.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. We'll take that.
Thank you.
Thank you.